What's up, guys? My name is Quincy and this is QnA, the show where I take your questions from Twitter and YouTube and answer them here on this show in video format. It's also June 19th, so happy Juneteenth to everybody. If you're celebrating, be safe, have fun, and let's get into these questions. And the first question is kind of a question, but it's off of a report from Rich Simi, who says the Jets and Jamal Adams situation continues to deteriorate. Adams informed the team that he wants to be traded, a source tells ESPN. And then my guy Billy Moss tweets at me, bunch of eye emojis, video soon. I'm probably not going to drop a whole nother Jamal Adams on the Browns video or trade video, because I did 2 videos covering that subject recently. So probably not another video other than what I'm saying, obviously, in this video. But again, makes a lot of sense for the Browns to do on the field, because Jamal Adams does solve some problems. The issue with trading for Jamal Adams is that you would be trading for a very expensive, very costly rental, given that the Jets play the Browns this year. Also, the Jets are in the AFC with the Browns, and I think the Jets do have delusions of grandeur in thinking they can make the wild card. They would obviously see the Browns as a contender and somebody who can get in their way with a piece like Jamal Adams. So it's only going to up the price, and I don't think the Browns are in a situation, nor do I get the feeling that Jamal Adams also wants to extend in Cleveland. So I don't think this is a long-term play. I think this is something you can do for, I believe he has 2 seasons left on his deal. So this is a short-term, win-now ultra move, and you would have to win a Super Bowl in order for it to be looked at favorably by history. But if the Browns do make this move and they can get it at a market value price, the benefits to the defense would be tremendous. And given the fact that they could still sign Jadeveon Clowney to add to that, then the Browns give themselves a real chance to a team that could be a sleeper kind of AFC championship contending team, or a sleeper Super Bowl pick. I don't think they would win the Super Bowl this year with the rosters constructed. I just don't think the defense is strong enough. But those 2 moves would actually fix that problem and put them in the real contention. I feel like that's a roster that can hold up on both sides of the ball, rather than one that's going to be really good on one side, but kind of a patchwork deal on the other side. So this Jamal Adams situation is going to be interesting. Hopefully he doesn't go to Baltimore, because adding him to that secondary would just be borderline unfair at this point. I mean, Baltimore certainly has the facilities to do it, but man, I really don't want to see that happen. And I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're probably going to trade him to the NFC, probably somewhere like San Francisco, because I think the Jets are going to want to get him out the way as far as possible so they don't have to deal with him, because I do think the Jets believe in their mind that they're going to contend for the wild card this year, and I don't think they want to help what they see as competition, especially with the AFC East being wide open since Tom Brady left the Patriots. So that's what my vibe is for the current situation. Would I want Jamal Adams on the Browns? Of course. I've done 2 videos saying why that would be really good and why he could fill some holes in. I get the pushback because it's a ton of picks for 2 years, but if you win a Super Bowl in those 2 years, it kind of doesn't matter. But do I think it's going to happen? Would I get you guys excited about the possibility of this happen? Do I think it's very realistic? No, I don't think it's realistic. And given the information that's out there now that's being reported in his list, I really don't think it's going to happen. And at this point, if you're a Browns fan, we need to just hope that he doesn't go to Baltimore at that point. But Jamal Adams on the Browns would be a absolutely insanely good situation. It's just one that I think, as more information comes out, we knew Jamal Adams had been frustrated for a while. Now we're learning on where he desires to be. And since Cleveland isn't on that list, on top of other factors, including the cap situation the Browns are going to be in, they're already trying to extend Myles Garrett. I just don't think this is going to be happening anytime soon. But it would be one hell of a defense. The next question comes from Justin Johnson, who says, any news on when the NFL players can start practicing? And this is an interesting question, because it's been crickets between the NFL Players Association and the owners. There's been no movement, no tug of war, no dialogues going. And this is starting to concern me given the fact that we're in June, and in a month and some change, that's when training camp's scheduled to start. And we have no contingency plans even being speculated or leaked at this point. And that means to me that nobody's having a conversation yet, and that they're kind of holding this off. And the more they hold this off, the more I get worried about major delays happening to the 2021 season, because these conversations need to happen in this time period where there was really nothing to be scheduled and the concessions could be made and understood by the time they get into camp. But now we're going to have a situation where we're probably going to come right up on the camp arrival dates and people just aren't going to know what to do. And that worries me, especially if you look at what other leagues are going through in the United States, the Major League Baseball and the Players Union and owners going back and forth there. And then with the NBA and some of the Players Union having a conversation with other players in the Players Union along with the owners in order to iron out some of the wrinkles in this plan. These things are very, very complex. And I hope the NFL's plan isn't just to throw them out there like normal, because I don't think that's going to be recommended or possible, given that they have that rule where if one state can't do it, nobody can do it. So the lack of any news or leaks on this so far is actually very concerning to me. I hope we hear something soon, because if we don't, that might signal that there might be a lot of ground that needs to be made up for in terms of these conversations that might have to happen in an extremely shortened period of time, which means that a lot of people are going to be unhappy, and that's when strikes and the mess that baseball's in can happen with the NFL, is when you try to rush it in too short of a period of time, instead of trying to lengthen these conversations out for a longer period of time so more people can cope and understand and make arrangements in order to be all right with what they got to do to have a season this year. So hopefully we hear some news soon, but the lack of news is actually concerning. This question comes from the NZ Takeover. It says, what percentage of the cap would you assign to each position group for best cap efficiency, i.e. 20% on quarterback, 10% on DB? This is something that I think varies widely from team to team and personnel to personnel. I mean, like, if your quarterback is Jared Goff, yeah, it doesn't make sense to pay him $20 million a year because he's not worth that percentage in the cap when it comes to impact on wins. He's just not that good. But if you have Aaron Rodgers making that much money, it makes sense that you can live with that and make up where you have to. It really depends on players. Again, the defense, Myles Garrett is probably going to make about $25 million, which is going to bring that cap percentage up for the Browns defensive line, which is fine because Myles Garrett's single impact on that defensive line is like worth 4 defensive linemen almost. So it's worth it there. It's not just the percentages. I don't think you can play it like that and have a perfect template for each position that you're going to spend money on. I can have suggestions, like I wouldn't spend a ton of money at running back. I wouldn't spend a ton of money at linebacker. But other than that, it varies widely on a player-to-player basis. Like a safety like Minkah Fitzpatrick is going to be a lot more valuable in terms of cap percentage to the Steelers than somebody like Denzel Ward would be, given that the Browns aren't really anchored off of his production, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how I look at it. I don't like to do one template and say that's the model because nobody has an exact science for this, but I do think it varies widely on players. This next question comes from Soja King, who says, paying respect to the original dogs, Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifield as top 10 all-time corner duo, how does our corner tandem of Ward and Greedy stack up? Are they sturdy enough to ascend the current rankings? Now, comparing those two in terms of play style is like completely hard to do because they played in different eras. One, and then Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifield were such physical corners at their time, and Ward and Greedy Williams are more finesse guys. But as far as ability goes, how do they stack up? It really depends on Greedy Williams' development. Last year, he showed sparks of being that guy that the Browns drafted that should have been a first-round corner but slid to the second round. And sometimes he looked like he shouldn't have been on the field. So up and down rookie year for Greedy. I expect him to play better. I don't think he's going to be Frank Minifield good, but Hanford Dixon good, I think, is a reasonable goal for Denzel Ward. Now, will they be able to reach that same level of success those two were able to achieve? I doubt it, because again, those two played in a different era where cornerbacks could have more dominance over a game because they could just literally hold guys and tackle them. So no, I don't think any cornerback duo in the modern day era can really touch that. But Grant Delpit, if he develops into what he can be, and Greedy Williams develops into what he can be, this would be a very dangerous top tier Browns secondary of all time. Just not Hanford Dixon and Frank Minifield good, in my opinion. The next question comes from Jordan Davis, who says, do your best to be unbiased on this. Okay. And rank the top 10 players in the AFC North. I can't do top 10 off the cup, but I'll do 10 best. And I might forget some guys. Forgive me. I'm going to go through this in the order of where the teams finished last year. So I'm going to start with Baltimore. I think Baltimore, obviously, Lamar Jackson is the best individual player in the AFC North. I'm going to leave out offensive linemen because I don't think that's what you're looking for in this question. Wide receiver-wise, they don't really have anybody. Tight end-wise, Mark Andrews is good, but he has drops a lot. So I wouldn't say he's a top 10 AFC North player. On the defensive side of the ball, I would say Marlon Humphreys is definitely a top 10 AFC North player. I don't think Matt Judon is there. He hasn't had the consistency. If he has another year like he did last year, he might, but I wouldn't put him up there. Earl Thomas, I think he's close to being a top 10 player still in the AFC North, but I don't think he was consistent enough and had a lot of moments where he put his foot in his mouth with quotes before the game. So I just don't see him in that same kind of Earl Thomas light that I did when he was in Seattle. So I wouldn't say he's a top 10 player in the AFC North. Then you go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You have to put Minkah Fitzpatrick in there, so that's 3. TJ Watt definitely deserves to be in there. And then you go on the offensive side of the ball, and we're not counting offensive linemen again. And yeah, that's about it for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think a 38-year-old Ben Roethlisberger is going to be a top 10 AFC North player. 4 players right now. Then you have the Browns. Based on production last year, I can't put Odell in the top 10 AFC North right now, even though he can easily get in there, but he just wasn't as productive as you would like a top 10 player to be. That's also going to exclude AJ Green out for the Bengals. So now you have Jarvis Landry. Nick Chubb is definitely in there. Myles Garrett is definitely in there. And then you go to Cincinnati Bengals. I would put Joe Mixon up there, so it's 8. Joe Burrow hasn't played a down yet, so I can't rank him officially yet. I would put Tyler Boyd up there, that's 9. And since I did all the teams, I have to go back, find one more. I'll go to Baltimore. I put Mark Ingram up there in the top 10. I think he added an extra dimension and a physical toughness to that Ravens run game that just wasn't there the year before. So yeah, that would be my 10 best players in a packet. I'm not ranking them 1 through 10 like that, just giving you the 10 best players in the AFC North. It's not a refined list, it's kind of off the dome, but yeah, I would say that would be the top 10. And I probably forgot somebody. Take it easy on me in the comment section, right? Next question comes from Dom Q, who says, thoughts on OBJ/Newton videos, members of the media/fans using it as another opportunity to dump on Baker Mayfield. Did we learn in 2019 that just grabbing the most talented guys isn't good enough? In my eyes, Baker/Keenum are a better fit with what we expect the Stefanski offense to be. I mean, like, it's Cam Newton's not a terrible fit for what the Browns want to run. I just wouldn't replace a number 1 overall pick who had a really good rookie year and a down sophomore year in his 3rd year. That's just my objection to that. It really doesn't have to do with fit. I do think Cam Newton could be a fit here. As far as OBJ working out with Cam Newton, I don't know why that's a big deal. They're both in LA a ton. They probably just were near each other, wanted to work out, and had a space procured, and they ran some routes. And I know people are like, well, he couldn't work out with Baker in Texas, Quincy. That's why it's a big deal. But this is like a month after that. Like he had a month of rehab in between Camp Baker in Texas and whenever he did this video with Cam Newton. So No, it's not the same thing. He probably was more recovered by the time Cam Newton hit him up to work out, and he's probably feeling like he's doing a solid for his guy who's not in the league anymore and wants to get him back into the league. So, got no problem with that. I don't even think it's a big deal. That's why I haven't covered it. But man, media be media, right? The next question comes from Giants Nation, who says, "What's up, Quincy? Sorry for missing last week. Some business I had to take care of. Don't worry about it." All right, buddy. My question is, what is your problem with Jim Harbaugh? I thought he was a good coach. I thought Jim Harbaugh was a good coach, too. He was a good coach at Stanford. He was a pretty good coach in San Francisco, or maybe that had to do a lot with Greg Roman because we've seen what he did with the Baltimore Ravens offense this year. But then he went to Michigan, and he was supposed to revitalize the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. And I've been looking forward to that rivalry meaning something because as somebody who is 25 years old, because I have rarely seen that game as an Ohioan mean what it should be because Michigan just hasn't been as good since Lloyd Carr fell apart. So it's really just frustration with Jim Harbaugh that he has not been able to make Michigan respectable enough to mean anything when you beat them. I mean, of course, it's Michigan. You beat Michigan. That's always fun. But a win over Michigan is a win that you should have. You know, it's not a game that you don't know who's going to win. It's a toss-up. And if Ohio State wins it, oh, it's a big victory. It's going to catapult them. No, it's just one of those games that you're nervous that Ohio State could lose because then you're like, oh, then they'll lose out the playoffs because they lost a bad game to Michigan, who had a bad loss to like Illinois or somebody like that. And it's just constant frustration. Who came in talking so big about how he's going to rejuvenate the rivalry and ultimately has done absolutely nothing but make himself look like a fool and continue to allow Michigan to stink. So as a person who values the Ohio State rivalry, I think Jim Harbaugh was meant to recover that rivalry, and he has further damaged it to a point to where I don't even know if it can be recovered realistically. So that's my beef with Jim Harbaugh, his lack of ability to build a program at Michigan despite getting five-star talents all the time, but he can't develop them. If somebody like Luke Fickell ran up in Michigan, who actually can develop talent, that team would be a national championship contender because the talent is there. The coaches just can't develop talent in Michigan, and it's Jim Harbaugh who's at the lead of it. Look at all the top tier guys, the Jabril Peppers of the world, who should have been mega stars in college football that he can only get a little bit of value of at a time. It's because he doesn't know what he's doing anymore. The game has passed him by, and I don't think he's admitted it, but that's my opinion on Jim Harbaugh and why I definitely would never want him to coach the Browns. And I almost don't even want him to coach Michigan, which is saying a lot because I don't even like Michigan as a program. The next question comes from Luke Richards, who says, probably not a question you want to answer in your video, but as a Browns fan from England, it's hard to find any good programs/books about the history of the Browns. They barely sell any merch here. Is there anything I could recommend? Would appreciate anybody else let me know too. Definitely let them know in the comment section down below. There are some things you can watch. Cleveland 95 is a pretty good documentary. The Paul Brown documentary is really good. I'm pretty sure there is a Jim Brown one that's really good. The documentary Believe Land isn't really about the Browns solely, but if you are into Cleveland sports, it goes into depth about some of the things in the minutia that surrounds Cleveland sports. So if you're going to cheer for the Browns, I would highly recommend that documentary, Believe Land. I think it's a 30 for 30 doc. I think it's on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on Netflix. I definitely don't know if it's on Netflix in the UK. Next question comes from Asante, who says, do you think Baker is more like Brett Favre because he takes risks or his actual arm talent? I think it's both. I don't think he has the arm strength that Brett Favre has, but I do think he has more touch and accuracy than Brett Favre. But they're very similar. Shorter quarterbacks. Brett Favre, I believe, was 6'1" and some change, or barely 6'2". Baker Mayfield's just under that. Both were mobile guys in college that aren't really mobile anymore in the NFL. Brett Favre was like a running back at one point in his high school career, and he was also a runner at Southern Miss. Baker Mayfield was a pretty mobile guy at Oklahoma, not like Johnny Manziel mobile, like some people like to exaggerate, but pretty mobile at Oklahoma. So yeah, the comparison is there. They both make just bad decisions sometimes with the football because they are supremely confident in their arm talent. But yeah, the Baker Mayfield, Brett Favre comp is very accurate when it comes to play style. Now, when it comes to level of play, Baker has a little bit of a ways to go to get there, but the potential is most certainly there. Thank you for the question. And that's all the questions for this week. And again, guys, if you have any recommendations for Browns documentaries and books and programs for Luke in the UK, let him know down in the comment section below. He'll greatly appreciate that. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.